Hello, class. We are back. We're talking about the Cold War still. We're talking about President John F. Kennedy today. We're doing his biography. And he was a part of the Cold War, and he had several different things that happened during his short presidency. And the reason I say short is because he was assassinated in 1963, uh, uh, right, in Dallas, Texas. So he didn't get to finish his presidency, but he was a major part of the Cold War. And during his time, you had the Bay of Pigs that happened in Cuba. Uh, then you had the Cuban Missile Crisis that happened. You had the Berlin Wall was put up during his time. So he was a major part of the Cold War during the 60s. So even before his death. So that's who we're talking about today, President John F. Kennedy, and going over his biography. So what's he most famous for? He's most famous for being assassinated early in his presidency. And he's also famous for the Bay of Pigs, like I said, and the invasion, Bay of Pigs invasion, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was married to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Some of the things we'll talk more in depth about the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis later on in this unit.
What is JFK most known for doing? John F. Kennedy is most famous for being assassinated early in his presidency. He is also famous for the Bay of Pigs invasion and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was married to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
All right, so he grew up in this wealthy, powerful political family in Massachusetts, Brookline, Massachusetts. It was also a big family. He had 3 brothers and had 5 sisters. And John's father, Joe had a dream that one of his sons would become president of the United States. So he sent them all to the best schools. He expected that his oldest son, Joe Jr., would be president one day. And John F. Kennedy, JFK, is who we're talking about, he graduated from Harvard in 1940 with honors.
Growing up, John grew up in a wealthy and powerful political family in Brookline, Massachusetts. It was also a big family as he had 3 brothers and 5 sisters. John's father, Joe, had the dream that one of his sons would become president. He sent them to the best schools and expected that his oldest son, Joe Jr., would be president one day. John graduated from Harvard in 1940 with honors.
All right, so Joe Jr. passed away, though. So John's father, he turned to John. All right, Joe, his father, Joe, turned to John to become the president. So he got John involved in politics. He helped John to get elected to the U.S. Congress in 1947. All right, this was 7 years after he graduated from Harvard. He served as congressman for 6 years, then became a U.S. senator in 1953. He did run for president in 1960 against the current vice president, Richard Nixon, and he won in one of the closest elections in history. So he ran against Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon later came back and won and became president. And we'll get more into him too. We talk about him as well. But in the 1960 election, Kennedy won the election and against Richard Nixon.
Before he became president, when Joe Jr. died, John's father turned to John to become president. He got John involved in politics and helped John to get elected to the U.S. Congress in 1947. John served as a congressman for 6 years and then became U.S. senator in 1953. Kennedy ran for president in 1960 against current vice president Richard Nixon. He won in one of the closest elections in history.
All right. So when Kennedy was elected as the 35th president, he gave one of these most stirring inaugural speeches in history. And he said during that speech, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And his presidency was marked by events in the Cold War. They had the Berlin Wall in Germany went up by the communists. You had the Bay of Pigs, and you had the Cuban Missile Crisis. And like I said, we'll talk more about all 3 of those things in depth a little bit later. But he was the 35th president. That's who he became, the 35th president of the United States.
John F. Kennedy's presidency. When Kennedy was elected 35th president, he gave one of the most stirring inaugural speeches in history. In this speech, he said the famous words, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. His presidency was marked by major events in the Cold War. These events included the building of the Berlin Wall in Germany by the communists, the Bay of Pigs, and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
All right, so the Bay of Pigs. This was just a few months after he became president. They didn't want communism to spread, so he decided to try to help Cuban rebels overthrow the communist Cuban leader Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro had taken over in Cuba uh, just a little bit before that. So the invasion failed miserably, though, when the CIA assisted rebels were badly defeated. And this event became known as the Bay of Pigs because of the name of the bay where the invasion took place. So the Bay of Pigs was a stain on the United States and his presidency at first because it made them look really bad.
Bay of Pigs. Just a few months after becoming president, Kennedy decided to try and help Cuban rebels overthrow the communist Cuban leader Fidel Castro. Unfortunately, the invasion failed miserably when the CIA-assisted rebels were soundly defeated. This event is called the Bay of Pigs because of the name of the bay where the invasion took place.
All right, then you had the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. And what this was, the United States discovered that the Soviet Union was building secret missile bases in Cuba. Cuba's only 90 miles from the coast of Florida, everybody. So these missiles would be able to strike the U.S. with nuclear bombs if they ever went to war. So in the coming days, they came very close to a nuclear war during this time. The U.S. quarantined Cuba in order to keep the missiles out. And after negotiations, the Soviet Union agreed to dismantle their bases, but they wanted the U.S. to agree to never attack Cuba again after the Bay of Pigs and to remove missiles they had pointed towards the Soviet Union that were in Turkey. So all these things went down. The Cuban Missile Crisis, it lasted for like 13 days or something. I forget how many days it was exactly, but it was very close to becoming a nuclear war. People thought that they were going to have to go to war during this time, and people were very scared during this time.
Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1962, the United States discovered that the Soviet Union was building secret missile bases in Cuba. These missiles would be able to strike the U.S. with nuclear bombs. In the coming days, the U.S. and the Soviet Union came close to nuclear war. The U.S. quarantined Cuba in order to keep the missiles out. After negotiations, the Soviet Union agreed to dismantle the bases. In return, the U.S. agreed to never attack Cuba and to remove missiles from Turkey.
All right. So how did JFK die? All right. He had several different big things during his presidency. On November 26, 1963, John F. Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, this man right here, while riding a convertible car in Dallas. It was in a parade in Dallas. And it was a sad time for America. People loved John F. Kennedy. They really did. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories, government theories. Government had him shot, had him killed. There was ties to the mob. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories, but they pinned the blame on this man right here, Lee Harvey Oswald. Do I think he acted solely? Mr. Sean don't think he acted solely, but who knows? You never know. And documents on that, it's supposed to be released in 1929 or not 2029. Will it be released? Will information be released at that point? I don't know. So, but anyway, Lee Harvey Oswald, who took the blame for killing, assassinating John F. Kennedy in 1963.
How did JFK die? On November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald while riding in a convertible car in Dallas, Texas.
All right, comprehension questions. John F. Kennedy was the blank president of the United States. Which president was he? A, the 35th president, B, the 12th president, or C, the 3rd president? He was the 35th president of the United States.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 2, who was John F. Kennedy's wife? Who was his wife? A, Betty White, B, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis or Jacqueline Lee Bouvier, all right, or C, Madonna. It was B, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 3, what school did he graduate from? A, Harvard, B, Webb Street, or C, Hunter Harris? It was A, Harvard. In 1940, he graduated from Harvard University.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, where was President John F. Kennedy born? A, Gastonia, North Carolina, B, Brookline, Massachusetts, or C, New York? He was born in B, Brookline, Massachusetts, to a very wealthy family. All right. They had made their money or kept their money after the stock market crash in 1929, but that's for a different day, different topic.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 5, who shot JFK or took the rap for shooting JFK? A, Lee Harvey Oswald, B, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, or C, no one? It was A, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
And that's all our comprehensive questions for this one. I'll be back next time. We'll be talking about the Bay of Pigs. And then after that, the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Berlin Wall. All right. You all have a very good day and a Happy New Year to you, because today is the 31st of December. It is New Year's Eve. You all have a good day.